joined. Awesome. Live on Facebook. Yes. It will tell me, it will just ask me to enter the title, and I'm going to do that momentarily. Okay. Wait. It should tell us when we're live. Okay, looks like we may be live already. Okay. Hello everybody. Leticia here, coming to you for this month's first edition of my weekly Money Matters webinars. And as announced a bit earlier today, today's topic will be a gold and silver update. And we'll get into the importance of that and why we're even speaking about this at this time. Joining me today is Mr. Jeremy Wiseman. Jeremy is the VP at Guildhall Wealth Management. Guildhall is one of Canada's leading providers of physical precious metals for Canadians to own, whether inside or outside of a registered portfolio. We'll get into some of the details on that in a little bit. So without further ado, Jeremy, welcome to our live stream today.
Great, thanks for having me.
My
Great
pleasure.
To be back.
Yes, absolutely. So Jeremy was my guest sometime in the first quarter of 2020. That's when this topic was becoming a hot topic already, because more and more Canadians were having concerns about the increasing amount of money printing by our, well, the central banks, both in Canada and the US. And I should say that Jeremy's firm also works with Americans. We have a participant joining us live over Zoom, so I know she already has some questions. Okay, perfect. That's wonderful. So yeah, if any of you have questions on today's topic, I encourage you to put them in the comment section, and I'll do my best to address them. And if not, towards the end of our conversation, we'll definitely address questions in the comments. So I see Anna has some questions, but maybe we should just kind of, okay, yes. I don't know what to do regarding silver. Some friends purchase bar from the bank. How do you sell them later? For mutual funds, should I reshuffle my portfolio or buy more gold and silver? All great questions. Okay. So Jeremy, maybe we should just kind of start as to, what's been going on with precious metals. For sure, people are, the concerns that we had in the spring of last year regarding all this, should we call them care packages or benefit packages that our governments were issuing, haven't waned. In fact, if anything, I think more and more people are seeing prices increasing at the stores. It seems our purchasing power is, quickly going down and down further. So, maybe you can tell us, where gold and silver come into play and other precious metals, and how they may be able to protect us against what we're witnessing in the financial markets.
Sure. So we're still at the beginning of 2021, and there's been a lot of action in the market so far. Last year, silver was up 45%, give or take. Gold was up about 22%. And the real action in the market last year happened around March, the end of March, obviously with the pandemic coming, and people were very concerned about, the safety of their finances, and there was panic. Let's be honest, there was panic. And at that time, especially basically at the end of March through April, the physical market completely dried up. Physical product evaporated. Wow. And what's interesting is at the same time, the prices went down. Around March 18th, the price of silver went down from $17 an ounce down to about under $12 on paper, but you couldn't buy it for less
Yeah,
than 19. So that's something we'll probably get into a little later.
sure.
Same thing on gold, end of March, around the 18th, the price of gold dropped $150. And everyone was asking, why is the paper price going down if I can't get any product? So
Right.
that was an indication that something was going on. And people decided, okay, I want the product. It's cheap. I don't care. You know, even with high premiums, it's still very cheap. And that continued. The difference is that for the rest of the year, and we were seeing it the year before a lot in precious metals, but specifically during the pandemic period, we were seeing a lot of people saying, look, I see the money printing that's now going on.
Yep.
I didn't notice it as much in 2008. I didn't care. Interest rates were low and I could buy a house and who cares? But now government printing has gone absolutely ballistic. I no longer trust the government. I've seen how they've handled this pandemic or whatever
Right.
it is. And so you have trust in government waning, trust in financial systems waning. And how do you protect yourself? Well, if you look at gold, for instance, it's averaged 11% a year for the last 20 years. And if you
No,
look
that's
at
not
it
bad.
in Canadian dollars, it's really only had one down year in the last 15 years. So that's an incredibly safe investment for a market that everyone says is volatile, and what good is it?
Mhm.
So people have been moving into the market over the last year, and the prices have quietly moved much, much higher. And then really the most interesting thing is leading into this year, we have January coming into the inauguration, you had kind of a quiet panic into the market. You had people getting involved in the market. It wasn't a mad rush, but it was a consistent, hey, I'm seeing what's going on. I don't like what I'm seeing. I want to protect my wealth. I can't leave cash in the bank at less than 1%. I'm getting nothing.
No,
I
clearly
can't go,
not.
I can't go into the stock market. It's already completely overvalued. And how does a stock that's 20 times earnings, 25 times earnings, 30 times earnings, where is that market supposed to go from here? They're not going to ring a bell at the top, but what are the chances it doubles from here? Probably pretty low. And then you've got the real estate market where people are saying, look, I've made a great amount of money in the last decade,
Yeah.
but I don't feel comfortable going in right now.
Yeah.
And so people are looking for a place to store wealth where it's going to be secure. And that's where they look at the performance of metals over the last decade. And it's pretty clear, obvious route. And then, so there was that. And then all of a sudden last week, to kind of bring it up to where we are right now, all of a sudden last week, you had the GameStop crew, right? Where you have this forum on Reddit decided that they're all just going to buy these beat up stocks that hedge funds are shorting, and they made billions. Right?
Actually, I must have missed that news, Jeremy. What was this all about? Sorry, because
So
some other people
so
may not be familiar with what you're referring to.
right. So a few weeks back, there's a forum on Reddit called Wall Street Bets,
Oh, right on. Okay.
and they decided that they were going to all invest in GameStop, which is it's a retailer at every mall selling video games.
Oh,
But
okay.
it turns out all of these hedge funds were shorting it a lot. And
Okay.
so, but it was public knowledge that they were shorting it, and it was public knowledge that what they were saying, what they were going to do in
So can
terms.
you define that? Because not all of us on the call are understand what shorting means. In other words, they were.
They
Uh,
were betting that the price would drop.
okay, right on. Okay.
They were betting that the price of GameStop would continue to go down, and
Okay.
they would put leverage bets on that play.
Fair enough.
So the viral investing, if you will, gets involved, and they push the market to crazy heights, and they
Okay.
basically bankrupt a hedge fund in the process. That isn't where it kind of ended or started, because then they moved on to other things like BlackBerry and AMC, where they did the exact same thing. But where it culminated was that the platform that a lot of these people were trading on Robinhood cut off GameStop from their ability to place these trades,
Wow.
which is completely illegal. And then they
Got
even
it.
sold these people's positions, which is even more illegal.
What? Unbelievable. Wow.
But what it demonstrated was that there are rules for me and not for thee. So basically saying the market's rigged, it's not in your favor. The minute we really pushed the system reacted by canceling us.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So then the Wall Street Reddit team gets together, Wall Street Bets, the Reddit forum, they start getting together saying, let's go start buying silver, because in the silver market, there's a lot of shorts, and it's very well known. It's one of the most shorted markets in the world. That's how
Okay.
they keep the price down. And so there was a lot of expectation coming into this week. Price of silver jumped up $2 into Sunday's open. We were trading as high as $29 an ounce.
Wow.
Gold doing nothing. And then we come into this week, and the powers that be, the bullion banks, remember, rules for me, not for thee, started hammering the market. So people were buying it at $29, $30 an ounce, and then all of a sudden the price of silver is down to, I don't know, right now we're a little under $27.
When you say they started hammering the market, do you mean they undertook a sell-off of their assets, like of their silver, or what?
So that's an interesting question. How does the paper market get the market to go down when everybody's buying
Mm-hmm.
it
It doesn't
up?
make.
There's two things. There's a difference between the paper market and the physical market. And we talked about this on a show where we said, look, it's one thing to take on a hedge fund. It's another thing to take on a bullion bank, which is sanctioned by the US government.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty easy. You raise premiums. You raise the collateral. So for example, if you have futures positions in the market, they just raised what you needed as a minimum for those accounts. So imagine in your portfolio right now, let's say you had 50,000 involved in a mutual fund,
Mm-hmm.
and the mutual fund comes out and says, the minimum now is no longer 50,000, it's 70,000.
Got it. Okay.
How many people don't have 70,000 and have to sell because they've raised the limit?
Wow.
That's what happened. So the price goes down. So, but again, what's really interesting here, where it really leads to, is this divergence between the paper price
Mm-hmm.
and the real world physical price.
Interesting.
Real world price of silver is $31 an ounce, if you can buy it, if it's available.
Got it.
So the spreads are rising for the physical if it's available. Okay, if you can get it. The paper price means nothing, because in the real world, it's what you can get, not what the paper price is.
So speaking of that, Jeremy, sorry for jumping, because I kind of want to, you bring up so much good stuff. When you mentioned earlier that in March of 2020, when people were already concerned about what was going on and they're basically rushing to get into the precious metals, you mentioned that the actual physical metals dried up. And, we spoke about on our previous call that there are certain legitimate providers of precious metals. Your company is one of them. You work with the mints, both the Canadian Mint and other mints. You mentioned there are a few of them. There are only a handful of mints throughout the world that are essentially seen as the trustworthy sources of precious metals, because people are asking, well, why can't I go to my neighborhood jewelry store and buy some metal that way, some silver or some gold that way? And then maybe this will answer, or we have Anna on the call. She asked the question, some of my friends are buying silver bars from the bank. Will they be able to sell them later? And that's an answer you already gave me on a previous call, saying that, when you buy silver or gold from a legitimate supplier, and I think there's a word they use, I forget.
LBMA.
What do you call?
LBMA.
LBMA, which stands London Bullion Market Association, right?
You got it, yeah.
I remember the LBMA, yeah. When you buy from an LBMA supplier, then your gold or silver is seen as legitimate by everybody else in the marketplace, and it will be easy for you to get rid of that,
Exactly.
to sell that should you need to. Um, so are banks, for example, LBMA approved as far as you know, Canadian banks?
Yeah, I think no, not necessarily. Actually, now that I think about it, no. TD, for instance, sells 1 ounce gold bars that are proprietary. They make them themselves.
Okay,
The best of my knowledge, they're not made by LBMA refiners, and so therefore that product is really only good to sell it back to TD. Right?
exactly.
Now, the thing about LBMA approved, that what it does is it sets two main criteria. One, that the product is refined to a certain quality. So there's a quality criteria.
Mhm.
And the second is that they're resourcing the product ethically.
They're doing which resourcing?
They're sourcing the product ethically.
Ethically. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But they're not getting gold from, a mine in South America that's being run by a drug dealer.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
So that's a key point, because, and then obviously also the third is that the company has to be able to handle a certain amount of business, a volume of business. And that's what gets them LBMA approved. It means you're on the good delivery bar list. It means that you're approved for global trade. And if you have a Royal Canadian Mint bar, you can take that anywhere around the world and it will be accepted.
Got it. Got it.
If it's not LBMA, then it's up to the discretion of the dealer if they want to buy that back or not. And that's where your liquidity could be an issue, because, a company like Guildhall could say, I really don't want to deal with that product. I don't want the hassle of taking it back and sending it to my wholesaler, who then has to do something with it, right?
Got it. Got it.
And so that's where you run into issues. Whereas, just as an example, Royal Canadian Mint or PAM Swiss, these products are, of course, everyone wants this product. Everyone knows it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, somebody again, Anna is asking if we have a link for her to check whether her supplier is LBMA approved. And I know you provided that link, but if you want, I can just maybe you or I could put it in the chat, and we can put it in the comment section as well. And needless to say, Guildhall Wealth, you are one of the approved suppliers in Canada. You work with the mints. That's why we have you on. But if you want to, for people, perhaps one of their friends bought from another supplier, and if they want to have their peace of mind to know that the supplier is LBMA approved, what is there a website, Jeremy, that they can go to for that?
Yeah, it's LBMA, London Bullion Market Association.org.uk.
Okay.
And there you can go to what's called the Good Delivery Bar list, and you can look up the company. Right? You can look up the names of the different companies, and you can also search by region, right?
Okay, awesome.
So if you know that it's, this bar was made in Turkey, you can look up, Turkey and see what are the major refiners in Turkey. Or you could look up Canada and you're going to get one, right?
Yeah.
So.
Got it. Because in Canada, we only have the Royal Canadian Mint.
I think so.
Okay. But so Long, tell me what happens in cases where, as in March of last year, there's a shortage of the physical product. Does that have to do with the fact that the mints are just simply not producing as much? They're not able to produce as much to meet the demand?
Last year, that was certainly the case. COVID was cutting down production, cutting down supply chains. So that was definitely at least an excuse that was being given, although, it was the case. Their refining capacity dropped significantly.
Okay.
This year, obviously, the refining capacity is much higher than it was last year, but ultimately the market is still very, there's still not a lot of product available at any given time. And that really is the fundamental that is sort of the overwhelming arch of this thing, or arc, I should say, which is that there's only so much product that can come into the market, and you can't double mine supply. You can't snap your fingers and gold doubles and double the mining output of gold. there's 1.6% that you can add to the gold supply every year. That's it. Same thing in silver. You can't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden increase mine supply by 15% and refining capacity at the same time. So there's only a limited amount of product that can come to market. So there's two ways to deal with that. You either deal with just continued bottlenecking, or what you're seeing right now, which is, I don't care, like at $16 an ounce, $17 an ounce in March, April, May, June. Although no, actually by about June, the price was way higher. Let's say March, April, even though the price of silver was $18, you were paying $4 over spot. It was a massive premium. Today, the price of silver is $26 and it's $5 over spot. So it's a bigger premium at a higher price.
Wow.
There's only two ways to deal with that. You either just keep waiting for product to come in, or the paper price has to rise to a level at which the purchasing power is less. What do I mean? Okay,
Yeah.
it's pretty straightforward. Let's say you have $100,000 to invest, and you could not invest, but acquire precious metals with, and that would buy you, let's say 2,500 ounces of silver. Okay. Well, if the price of silver doubles, you're buying half that amount. You're buying 1,250 ounces. So it's pretty clear where the price of metal has to go because there's no supply. And the only way to handle it is if the price is twice as high or 3 times as high, and your purchasing power can't buy as much. And therefore the pressure on the supply side gets released. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the problems and speaking of that, which is kind of interesting, one of the problems that is happening or being exposed by this Reddit Wall Street thing is people are buying the ETF, which has no effect on the physical market because they don't have to own physical product to back the ETF. They say it's there, but if you read the paperwork, it doesn't have to be there.
Right.
Or they could replace the physical gold and silver with cash as a ledger entry and it's all good.
Wow.
You can't invent the product out of thin air, right?
No. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting market, but the high premiums is really an indication. The takeaway here is that the higher premiums is an indication that the price needs to move much, much higher. So a cheap price with a high premium is still a cheap price.
Interesting. So, but let me get this whole premium thing. So if people go, let's say, on your website and want to purchase some gold, or they reach out to you, and by the way, we'll provide your contact information at the end as a trustworthy supplier. If people reach out to you, Jeremy, and say, hey, I want to buy a gram of gold or however many grams of silver, is there a price on your website that you'll be able to honor, or you're going to tell them, yeah, well, the price is officially this, but you have to pay this additional amount because I can't get you the product any sooner? Like, I think actually, like, can you explain that to us? Because people may get
so in these types of situations, you actually have to turn the website off.
You have to which? You have to
turn the website off.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. Because there's not enough product, you can't supply the market, and so you're going wait list. And then, but in terms of premiums, I'll give you an example of just how crazy this market has become.
Wow.
A year and a half ago, not just a year ago, but let's say a year and a half ago, if you were a savvy gold buyer, you could probably buy gold $50 over spot. Okay, so if it's trading at $1,500, you could get it for $1,550 US. Okay. Last March, it was probably $80 over spot.
And by spot, you mean the official trading price, the official
trading price, yes.
Paper price, so to speak.
Yeah,
if you go on, what's the price of gold? If I Google what's the price of gold, that's the official price, but
correct.
The reality is something else.
Correct. So it's the spot price is the non-fabricated price of metal. It's the paper price.
Okay.
So then obviously the product has to be refined into a certain purity, fashioned into a bar, packaged, shipped to a wholesaler, sell it to a retailer who sells it to the retail owner, retail buyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So just like any other manufactured good, this is an asset. I like to use Kit Kat as an example. It takes the ingredients, put it together, mold it into those beautiful little Kit Kat bars, package it, ship it. right? You're not buying just sugar and chocolate. You're buying the completed thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Now, the spot price is also what it's worth. So once
Okay.
you own gold or silver, what is it worth? It's worth spot price.
So if when you go and sell it, even though you might have paid a premium, what you're getting for it is the spot price.
Exactly. So
Okay.
you need the spot price to rise above the premium of which you paid.
Okay. If you want to make a profit in the transaction.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's
Okay.
why gold and silver are not trading vehicles,
No.
because you're not buying paper where it's just a $5 trade and that's it. You're
Yeah.
actually acquiring a physical asset.
Right.
But so a year ago, year and a half ago, you could get gold for $50 over spot. 6 months ago, you were looking at $80 over spot. Today, today, even though the price of gold is higher, it's at $125 over spot
Got it.
if you
Got it.
can get it.
Got it.
Silver, 100-ounce bar, you could, a year and a half ago, $1.20 over spot. 6 months ago, $3.50, $4 over spot. Now it's almost $5 over spot. And the price of silver is higher today
I
by
got it.
$10.
Significantly higher. Yeah, significantly higher.
So
So,
again, this is so clear. This is the exciting part. Because if you can understand that, and you can say, yeah, I get it. I'm paying higher premiums. But those higher premiums are telling me that this market has to go, the price can't go down.
yeah,
They could push the price to $10. You know what your price is going to be? $31.
got it.
Paper
Got it.
price no longer matters. It's the physical world. And the
Yeah,
paper price has to catch up. And it's a very exciting time because even if, okay, I can't get my metal today. All right, that's okay. You'll get it next week, or, come back when the market settles down a little bit. Markets are always moving a little bit in waves. But eventually, silver could easily go over $100 an ounce. No
yeah,
problem. I mean,
yeah.
inflation adjusted price, if using 1980 CPI, like the real CPI, the inflation adjusted price for silver is well into the $900 range. And
Wow.
that sounds crazy, but gold's trading at $1,700, $1,800 an ounce. Platinum is at $1,200 an ounce. Palladium's trading at $2,300 an ounce. How come all of these precious metals are quadruple digits and silver's a double digit metal? And it's in every car, cell phone, plasma screen TV, electric car, medical usages, you know, um,
So, so,
athletic gear, transition lenses. I mean, it's in everything.
so you're saying there are so many uses of silver, but that also shows that like its use it's widespread. So maybe that's why it's not seen as precious as the other metals that you mentioned. And
And, and yet it's the most consumed.
it's the most
Every
the
ounce of
most used.
gold that's ever been mined is still above ground. Whereas with silver, it's gone. It's a resource that's been completely consumed.
That's so interesting.
There's 1 billion ounces of silver. There used to be like 6 billion ounces or 8 billion ounces back in 1980.
So it sounds like you're saying that silver has the most practical usage in the world. Like if you're going to look for something that's, so I mean, one of the reasons people are even considering, those who haven't as of yet gotten into the precious metals, but the reason more and more people are becoming interested is because so many people are concerned about like the legitimacy of our currencies moving forward. In this in this age of increasing money printing, what are our dollars even going to be worth, a year, 2 years, 10 years from now, if there's even going to be a Canadian dollar 10 years from now, or a US dollar. We don't really know we have some idea as to what certain powers are up to, but bottom line, their different movements are out of our control, and so with owning a physical metal, a physical precious metal that has been around through the ages, it's not going on anywhere. It comes from the earth. It's something you can literally hold on to. I guess my question would be: do you ever envision a time where we could go back to using silver as a medium of exchange, as a currency, silver or gold? Is that something that's even conceivable to you, considering the potential complete collapse of currencies? I mean, again, I don't want to sound too dystopian here, but I mean, where are we
Right.
heading, Jeremy?
Yeah. Well, it's a big question. Ultimately, I guess the starting point would be understanding what central banks are all about. Central banks are there to basically rob people of their wealth, not help them with it. They're there to backstop the banks. A lot of the things that the central banks try to do um, is mimic gold, right? The
Yeah,
idea is to to have the discipline to monitor interest rates, and it's very clear no central banker has that discipline, but gold has that discipline. You can only increase the gold supply by 1.6% a year. That would literally cap inflation at
that's
1.6. It doesn't mean that a bank can't lend out money. Of course they can, right? But it would be independent. There was a time where if a bank lent out too much money and made bad investments, if they went broke, it didn't affect the rest of the system. Today it does.
right.
Today it's all attached, and that's part of the central banking issue.
Yeah,
I don't know if gold has to become um, the currency in the sense of that you would literally go and buy and sell, like use your gold currency, uh,
mhm,
even if it was crypto backed or anything like that. But I
mhm,
think what is going to be demanded by people, and it's very clear where the trend is, this distrust in government, distrust in finance,
mhm.
distrust in Wall Street, especially. That's what the Reddit thing's about.
Yeah,
That you have to put trust back into the system, and how do you do that? And gold you could bury in the ground for thousands of years, pull it out, and it's exactly the same thing. You cannot destroy it. And that is trust. And that is the discipline that's needed. And so certainly going back to a gold standard in that sense
got it.
is a way to say, look, and here's the key. This is the other thing that makes tying currencies to gold important. Right now, there's no tether. There's fiat, which means government by decree or gun. Okay, that's what it is. You use our currency or else.
Right.
Okay,
We don't have a
so
choice. Yeah,
we don't
it
have a
seems
choice.
in the in pretty much any country in the world, their what do they call it? Official tender, right?
Yeah,
It's whatever they say it is, but now we're getting into alternatives. We're getting into crypto, and
yeah,
increasing numbers of people are using crypto. I've had a couple of guests talk about crypto, and I'm gonna definitely have more guests. And speaking of Bitcoin and cryptos, they're definitely mimicking what's going on in the gold and silver market. In terms of just
yeah.
an uptick in yeah, uptick of those currencies. Um, yeah, but what you were saying, Jeremy, go ahead. Sorry.
So I just think that right now, because all of the fiat currencies don't have any backing at all,
Mhm.
there's no way to understand the value. So if we're two different nations and we're dealing in floating currencies, and I happen to be devaluing my currency underneath you while we're trading, that's not a legitimate that's not a legitimate way to run a business.
Makes sense.
When there was a gold standard, it's very easy. There's a base standard for the value of our money, and therefore when we do business together, it's a very equal business transaction. And again, that's
Makes
what
sense.
that's what people are going to look for. It's a pendulum, I think, is going to be swinging
Yeah.
between the fact that everyone is becoming more distrustful. And look, I mean, you're seeing a lot of people, cancel culture, a lot of people being taken down off sites and off Twitter and whatnot. And what's the result? People go somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? Same
Yeah.
thing with cryptos. Oh, I'm sick of this system. I want to move to another system. And
Hmm.
the more you try to erase us, the more you try to cancel culture as a way, and I'm
Yeah.
saying us as in a collective us,
Yeah.
then they go find other places. And what happens as a result? The peripheral, the amount of information that's going out, the proliferation of information now off Twitter, it's like the big tech probably regrets doing it
For sure.
because now
Yeah.
they've completely lost control. They wanted to censor people to keep control, and now they've gone somewhere else and they have no control.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with cryptos. They
Yeah.
try to talk it down. I don't like it.
Oh yeah.
Force more people into it. Why do people want gold? Well, I don't want to be forced into your monetary system. I'm going to go somewhere where I know my wealth is safe. And gold has shown that for decades, for thousands of years. But recently, in the last couple of decades, absolutely, it's giving you the protection that you need. And so I think there is a trend towards, if we're kind of at a precipice, I think. Most people would probably agree that we're either going to go very dystopian and there's going to be a great reset. And how are you going to survive in that great reset? I mean, I don't think a lot of European countries fared well when they had to convert over to the euro. Most countries lost a lot of money in that, right?
Well, interesting.
So what would a great reset look like if you had to, all of a sudden the Canadian dollar disappeared and we were on a different currency? Oh, do you think they're going to give it to you at 1-to-1? No, not at all.
No, there will be an opportunity to rob you some more.
Yeah, so there could be the dystopian direction, or maybe the world goes in a different direction where there is a major collapse, but what comes out of the ashes of that collapse? Right? It would be great if all of a sudden we didn't have to pay income tax, that's for sure. Right? I'll take a collapse. Would you take a collapse in the stock market and lose money if it meant that going forward you could keep all your money?
Of course, yeah. Jeremy, I think that's something so many of us are kind of praying for and wishing for. We are definitely heading towards some precipice. I think certain powers that we all know about are intending to orchestrate a reset as per, again, to take even more control of the financial markets, even more control than they ever had. And not just the financial markets, but of our lives itself. I mean, we're seeing what's going on. But I think so many of us are taking some defensive measures. So many of us are becoming, increasingly educated about alternatives. And I'm so grateful that alternatives are being created. As you mentioned, when they went overboard with the censorship, people started going to freer platforms. I spend most of, if I want to get information, I go to BitChute. I don't go to YouTube hardly at all, because all the good guys are on BitChute. Thank you very much. And then, there are alternatives like LBRY that are decentralized. So even if they take down some of these freer sites, and similarly, I think on the currency level, again, I have faith in humanity. I think we are smarter than these would-be orchestrators are giving us credit for, and definitely taking back control of our currency and of our finances is something that's going to help a lot of people. Every one of us. It starts with us, right? Like we may not feel like we can change this whole monolithic system that's been created over generations, orchestrated from the top, but implemented by, so many people, oftentimes unknowingly, but it all starts with us. I feel like this is, what can I do today to take back some of that control? And I feel, definitely the gold and silver, this is, it could be, one of the olive branches that gives us that sense of security. Look, you know what? They can do whatever they want with their currency. At least I have my gold and silver.
Exactly. So on that note, I'll tell you a quick little story, because I had a conversation today with a couple, and they have gold in a fund, and they asked, well, what's the difference between this, because there's no costs, right? It's practically free to get into it.
Yeah.
Versus going ahead and buying physical because the premiums are so high, et cetera.
Sure.
And we were talking about the fact that there's a difference between gold ownership, gold silver ownership, and gold investing.
Yeah.
Gold investing means you still have a counterparty risk. You don't actually own anything. You've given your money over to a different entity, and they're controlling that money. I demonstrated that by saying, do you have home insurance? He said, yes. Okay, so you didn't go out and buy a stock in home insurance. You actually had to go out and buy home insurance.
The actual products.
If I need life insurance, I don't go out and buy shares in an insurance company. I actually go out and buy life insurance.
Policy. Yeah, the actual
So
policy.
same thing with wealth. How do you protect your actual wealth? You need that actual insurance policy. Now, here's what happens though. And by the way, they did buy some physical metal. And they were happy. They were really happy. But what happens is, and I see this a lot, is the minute the mind decides I'm moving towards the direction of owning this asset, the mind instantly goes to, what if it's taken from me? What if
Of
it's,
course. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
how do I know the safe, the vault company isn't going to steal my metal? How do I know the metal isn't fake? How do I know that the government doesn't confiscate it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And all of these thoughts, legitimate, rational thoughts. But what are those thoughts about, really? Why all of a sudden do you care about an asset being taken from you when you've been giving your money to banks and advisors your whole life
Yeah.
and never worried about the fact that they were stealing from you? You never asked or wondered the question that the government says inflation's at 2%, and when you go to the grocery store, everything is 8% higher,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Why is it that you're willing to take that sort of theft unknowingly? However, the minute you decide you're going to own that in your hand, now you're responsible for it.
Mhm.
You're responsible for your money.
Right.
You're responsible for the assets that you own. And therefore, it's discomforting a little bit. It's, oh my gosh, what if it's stolen from me?
Right. Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so you have to realize, yeah, that's right. There was a time where people owned assets. They didn't just invest in wizardry advisors and the Fed that told you, and CNBC that said, we're all knowing about what's going to happen in the markets, and please just put your digital currency into the system, right?
Got
So
it.
there is that awakening happening. It's happening. People are saying, I don't want to own paper. I want the physical.
Yeah.
I want to know it's mine.
So with that said, Jeremy, I know, and again, I know we covered this in our last webinar, but if people have this sort of concern, like, hey, okay, I know I'm willing to buy some gold and silver, but how do I know? First of all, if you do ship across Canada, right, through secure ways, correct?
Yes.
There's careers and there's insurance and everything when you ship out, and across the U.S. as well, like
Yes.
you work with a partner in the US, right? Where
Correct.
you guys can also service US based clients, okay? Now, some of my audience right now is in Mexico, for example. Like, but they're usually Canadians or Americans. If What other options do they have in terms of storing? If they don't want to store it on their physical person or they don't want to ship it across borders, what other options do they have in terms of storage facilities? Or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, obviously you can look into what you have locally. I think we've covered the idea that you want to make sure that your product, first and foremost, that the product you're buying is LBMA approved, so that you don't have to worry about the sell side of things eventually.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't sell all of it one day, but when the price quadruples and quintuples, you'll sell a good portion of it. I think the key thing about vaulting itself is that you get the serial numbers for your product, that you have access to your product, meaning you can actually either go to the vault to see it, right? Maybe there's COVID protocols right now. Okay, fine. But let's say barring no COVID, can you go there? Can you take delivery easily, right? These are the type of transparencies that you're required, right? There's also, there's vaults that you can store around the globe, like Singapore, you can store in Cayman Islands. So if you do want to store out of country, I know the Cayman Island one, especially for American owners of precious metals, we have very few Canadians who are looking at the Cayman Island storage, but a lot of Americans do.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because they don't trust anyone, and that's totally fine. I get that.
I think there's a certain minimum, like if you're going to be storing metals at a vault, and maybe you could just tell us, Jeremy, because I mean, again, we're talking about both the price of gold and silver having gone up. So people who haven't yet gotten started, they may feel like, I might have missed the boat already. Can I still get started? Is there, if somebody wants to just get started with $1,000, is that even something that can still be done in terms of buying some amount of gold or silver?
Yeah, I think it's always good to crawl, walk, run.
Mhm.
And definitely starting with some small product and getting a little bit in your hand is a great way to go. And then maybe you eventually build up to a larger position that does require vaulting to protect that wealth and keep it liquid. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, you can still buy a 10-ounce bar of silver for, $420, $430 Canadian. A tube of maples is like $1,100. An ounce of gold is like $2,600 or something. So,
Okay. Okay.
for under 5,000, you could get a little bit of variety of product. And I
Okay.
do think that's a great place to start. You buy some product, take it home, store it yourself. Maybe you're comfortable putting it in a safety deposit box. Maybe you're happy just to leave it in a home safe or something like that. And then once you've kind of built up that cash component of your portfolio, then you can look at moving into other things like vaulting or maybe putting some in your registered account.
Got it. Yeah. So speaking of that, Jeremy, it's worth reminding people that if you do have an RSP portfolio or a TFSA portfolio currently sitting in mutual funds or GICs, again, with GICs, you probably have to wait a certain amount until you can, cash out those GICs. But you do work with a partner that would allow with, I think you mentioned it was Quest
That's right.
Trading. Yeah, and where they would essentially act as a middleman, and Canadians have the option of actually uh, transferring their positions that are currently in mutual funds into precious metals. You could literally get the precious metal equivalent of and this is completely legal. It's allowed. You're allowed to hold physical gold and silver in your RSPs, TFSAs as well, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So instead of you having sitting, in paper money that is being depreciated by the day, and it's completely out of our control what's happening there, you have the option of going to something solid, and Jeremy will help you with that. So if you and it doesn't matter if your RSP is currently at one of the major banks, um, wherever your RSP may be, as long as it's something like self-directed, not something like a pension plan that's tied to your work. If you have a self-directed RSP account, you'll be able to transfer that quite easily. It's just a matter of days, right, Jeremy? Um, to
Yeah.
to
Well, it takes a couple weeks to do a transfer,
couple of weeks, fair enough, but it's
but
still
but
a matter of
yeah, but
yeah.
the key is that ultimately what we do in the registered accounts, whether it's an RSP, TFSA, LIF, RIF, LIRA, basically all of them, is that you would be buying your own product. You're buying actual physical product. It's then being shipped and stored in your own sub account at the vault. And so what it is essentially is you directly own the physical product within your registered account, which means barring COVID protocols, you can go to the vault to personally audit your holdings. Or if you decided, hey, I'm going to pay the withholding tax, or in the TFSA, just, hey, I want to take it home, what would you get? You'd get exactly the bars that you paid for. No runaround,
Got
right?
it.
Why no runaround? Because you actually own that product, and that's the key.
Got it. Got it. So Jeremy, speaking of the vaults, is there a dollar minimum that you'd even suggest, or because I imagine vault storage doesn't come for free. I'm guessing like it's a service that's provided to these asset holders. So what is when does it make sense for somebody to even consider vault storage, whether in Canada or at one of these more exotic destinations or locations?
So typically it would be 1,000 ounces of silver or the equivalent value in gold, right? Gold is really easy to store. It's very discreet. Silver is more bulky, but we have found over the years that less than 1,000 ounces, and it does become tough to rationalize the cost of doing business because there's usually an administrative fee, storage fees, and so you need to have a certain amount where you can rationalize the cost of doing business. It's not a lot. We're talking just over 1% a year to store and insure your physical product.
That's not that
But
bad.
if it's a smaller amount, kind of every dollar counts, and so
Sure.
I get that, and so we keep that minimum more so because we understand that whether or not you don't know it yet.
Fair enough. Yeah, but you understand that. Fair enough. Got it.
Now, in the registered accounts, you can do smaller amounts.
Okay.
TFSAs, you can do under $10,000.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Because is it a requirement if you do have a registered account? Is it a requirement that precious metal gets stored at a vault? Like you cannot.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a requirement by law.
Yeah.
If you're going to be okay, makes sense. Because I guess the government needs to know that you're not going to go and spend, without letting them know that you liquidated your gold and silver, because they want to cut of that, like, when you, well, not so much with the TFSAs, but because it's a registered account, just like the RSPs, but we know there's a withholding tax if you withdraw money from an RSP ahead of time, like before age 65 in this case. Okay, that all makes sense, Jeremy. Well, you know what, you've covered a lot of ground. It's very interesting, and I can tell that you could go on talking about this topic for hours. And I would like to have you back for sure, because I think this is a topic for the times, and I think more and more people need to know that these options are available and accessible. Now, how are you doing now in terms of deliveries? Like if somebody wanted to buy, order from you guys, gold and silver, like how are you guys still backed up? How is the supply chain now?
It's still very tight. There's a lot of bottlenecking. I think that it won't take long to ease up. I think that what you're going to see actually is the price of the metals, gold and silver, start to rise a little bit. And as they start to rise, I am guessing a bit, but I've seen it before. I think as the market starts to rise, the premiums will come down a little bit. So I think that there's a bit of a balancing happening right now where the paper price is too low, physical price is high. As the paper price starts to catch up, the premiums will come down a bit. But right now, yeah, you're looking at anywhere from like 3 to 5 weeks delivery.
Okay.
If you can book an order.
Wow.
Right.
So okay, let me ask you a logical question. I'm sure you have some big fish clients, and you have some little fish clients. Does this situation force you to have to prioritize? So if somebody's just placing a small order, well, tough luck for you. You're gonna have to wait longer. Or what would, or I think it's a logical question.
It's a great question because, again, the reason we're seeing a lot of movement right now in the market is because of what happened with Wall Street Bets and Reddit, and the attention being focused on this market. And again, as you were talking about earlier with BitChute and all of these different platforms, there's so much information proliferating so quickly now, right? And there's such a unified aspect to the groups on these sites that that's really what's caused this current movement in the market. But what's interesting about this movement in the market is that they tend to be a lot of people who are getting into the market for the first time.
Really? Okay.
And when we're getting into the market for the first time, like we talked about a few minutes ago, it's usually let's start a bit smaller, and then build from there.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last few years, you've definitely seen a lot of larger buyers, but larger buyers aren't, several hundred thousand. They're not looking at just the market moving up a couple bucks and then picking up the phone saying, I've been meaning to do this, let's do it. Right? So they've been taking their time. They've been getting into the market over the, so again, the people in the market right now, a lot of new buyers coming in, and a lot of new buyers are obviously gonna start off a bit slower and build up.
Okay, makes sense.
So to answer your question, we're not seeing that we're not having to make those priority decisions.
I got it. Okay. In other words, you're still welcome. Any taker, like, whoever is interested, you're welcome. You will gladly assist them. You'll help them. They have to understand that there is a waiting list, and that just has to do with the supply chain, the bottleneck in terms of production, the increased demand. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Jeremy, because just because even people watching, it was just not a thing most Canadians would do in the past. It's not something that many of us even had to think about, other than the gold and silver that we got from our grandmother, and and the jewelry, that was but I think more and more people are becoming educated now, and they're legitimately becoming concerned about what's happening in the financial markets, and with the money printing. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Jeremy.
And prices will fluctuate. I think the other thing about the pricing as well is that people get used to a certain price. So for example, silver, it was trading in the $18 range for a couple of years there. So people were used to that price. When the price jumped up to 26, maybe a lot of people thought it's too expensive, right? It's like your favorite band. It's like, oh, I don't like that band anymore. They went commercial, you know? And I think that as the price moves higher, there'll be people who think, oh, I don't like it. It's too high. But I mean, what's the average price of a bank stock? $60, $70, $80. Silver's nowhere even close to that yet. So I think that as each level comes along, especially in the silver market, there will be a catching up where people have to realize that's the new price.
Yeah.
I don't think we go back to $10 silver at any point in the future.
I don't think so either.
I think those days of silver in the teens are gone. In my opinion.
Yeah, it makes sense, Jeremy. It just makes sense because the craziness that we're witnessing, you know, like they're not stopping the money printing. I guess it remains to be seen, again, what happens should the central banks decide, well, we're gonna go to this new digital currency now, or because I mean there's an increasing push towards digitization, as you may have noticed. And if those digital currencies are not backed by anything, if it's just another version of the fiat currencies we have right now, I don't see that being, obviously it's no better, and in fact in many ways it could be worse. I mean, people are concerned about privacy as well, among other things. So so I still feel like there's until we have a truly better system, it's up to us to keep arming ourselves with alternatives as much as possible. Interesting choice of words that came to mind, but really, it's important to prepare ourselves and have these alternatives. And gold and silver for sure are one such alternative, and one such buffer against what's going on.
Yeah.
With us, Jeremy, how can people get a hold of you? Tell us. Like, I mean, you said people are like you're not doing orders off the website right now, so they would go to, they can email you, correct?
Yeah, they can email me. You can go to guildhallwealth.com. You can check in on the website just to see like when it goes back up. Guildhallpreciousmetals.com. My email is jeremyw@guildhallwealth.com. And we also have a radio show called The Real Money Show, which is on AM 640 in Toronto, but we also do put it on YouTube. At least, we're still on YouTube. We haven't gone anywhere yet, but you can look up The Real Money Show on YouTube or Guildhall Wealth on YouTube and see some of our prior radio shows there as well.
Awesome. And guys, if you do decide to reach out to Jeremy, mention him that you saw him on Letitia's Money Matters webinar. Thank you very much. And that's about it, you guys. Thank you so much, Jeremy, again for joining us for another, insightful and cool conversation. And let me see, first of all, Jeremy, if we had any questions on Facebook. Give me 1 second. Okay. Because we were live on their Facebook. Yeah. If I go to my wall. I just see a lot of, because it was just my birthday 2 days ago. Thanks, everyone. Okay.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Anna, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It will still stay on my wall, okay? Yeah, I'm gonna have to maybe refresh my Facebook profile to see the questions. 1 second, Jeremy. Okay, yeah. Do you charge storage fees to hold the metals for clients? Somebody's asking.
Yes.
About that if it comes time to storing your metals in a vault, then yes, there will be storage fees. And you can describe those to clients, and you can even tell them when you think it makes sense, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, that's a wrap. Okay, thanks again, Jeremy, for joining us. I will
Okay.
put your contact info in the comment section. And I can also let you know when I've uploaded our session to my YouTube channel, and then you're welcome to download it. And if you want to share it on YouTube channel, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay,
Thank you so much.
thanks again, my pleasure.
Bye. Take care.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Take
Bye,
care.
guys.
Cheers. Thanks everyone for watching. See you
Cheers.
next week. Bye-bye.